Welcome live to Checkered Flag Interactive. We are here at Road America today for the Rose IndyCar Series. After a quick 2-week break for the holidays, we are back to racing on Sunday afternoons. We are going to be taking a look at a lap around this tricky track in just a moment.
Down.
Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Lichtenberg, driver for Broken Arrow, and welcome to Road America here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. To give you some quick facts about this track, it comes in at 4 miles long, has 14 turns, and it was originally built in 1955 in response to public road racing being banned in the state. So interestingly, each of the corners is modeled after a real road somewhere in the surrounding village. As we now head down to turn 1, hard braking zone. Actually, I missed the braking zone altogether, and missed the apex too. We now head into turn 3. Turn 3 very similar to turn 1, a little bit tighter corner, slower corner. Took that one in second. As we now head down the second of the 3 main straightaways here at the track, under the Sargento Bridge. We now head through the forest, the moraine sweep, down into turn 5, downhill braking zone, so obviously very difficult, easy to lock up your brakes. One of the best places to pass though if you're brave enough. We now head up through turn 6 and under the Corvette Bridge. Power down as soon as you can for the hurry downs. Quick right-hander here, you could take this flat out in Q trim if you're brave enough. We now head down to turn 8 and head under the Johnsonville Bridge for the carousel, one of the longest winding corners in all of racing. One of the classic corners for this track. Out of the carousel we now head for the kink, one of the more dangerous corners on this track. Flat out, but you could even get a little wheel spin or even loose if you're not careful. Very difficult corners. We now head to turn 12 or Canada corner. Originally got its name actually because after race weekends when the track was being cleaned up, Canadian beer and import taxes were found, and the name has stuck ever since. We now head through turn 14, the last corner of this track. Power down, use as much of the track as you can. So we now head uphill to the start-finish line. And that is a lap of Road America.
And welcome back here live on Checkered Flag Interactive. You've got Steve Bonesteel and Evan Pasoko back up in the booth for you here today. We are live at Road America for the Rose IndyCar Series race number 3. And now, Evan, with just a few more moments left here in warm-up before the race, let's take a moment and take a look at this tricky track here. We're in Wisconsin for this race, and this track is very tricky, 14 corners, It's one of the trickier road courses we've got in America. Definitely one of the most famous ones for sure.
These next 2 weeks are going to be very exciting. Two staples of American road racing. Road America followed by Sebring in 1 week's time. Two very iconic racetracks. But tonight at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, this town only has a capacity of about 1,000 people. We have 21 drivers that are going to pack this facility for 43 laps and about 172 miles this evening, Ryan. Or Steve, I'm thinking about Ryan Norton, the admin over here that we were just speaking to. But it's going to be back, Steve. 2015. It's almost a little bit of a new year. We had two of our races back in 2014, so a lot of racing to go. 17 races left in this season. A lot of very long straightaways at this racetrack. You got the front straightaway, two of them that could be considered back straightaways, which means a lot of passing zones. No surprise, it is Alex Simpson topping the board right now in the practice session. He was putting some people to school on how to overbreak them going into corners, so there's going to be a lot of great passing zones. Turn 1, turn 5, turn 12. It's going to be an exciting race as we come to expect now with this series.
Yeah, definitely a lot of big names in the field today, and as soon as these drivers get down onto the grid, I'll toss it back over to Evan so he can run through the starting lineup.
And that's right, the field is gridding up behind the iRacing Ford First Mustang pace car for our rolling start. So we're going to let you know where everybody is going to grid up for this race. 30 minutes of warm-up have come to a conclusion. These guys had their qualifying earlier this afternoon, but it is going to be Alex Simpson, fastest in practice. He'll sit on pole position alongside him. Brandon Trano, another fast machine at number 9 car, going to start from second. Then you have Daniel Benefield is going to start third position alongside Michael DeJong in fourth. Fifth is Andreas Werner. Eric Davis is going to be starting in 6th position in the number 65 machine. Miguel Martinez in the number 17 entry will be 7th after being 7th as well. In practice, Randy Crosno going to be on the outside of row 4. That's going to be the 8th starting position. 9th to Andrew Woodhouse. Michael Thompson will round out the top 10 on the grid. Gary Borkenhagen back on row 6 and 11th position. 12th position, Cam Stark. You got Dennis Garis in 13th. 14th to Barry Rowland. You got Carl Burke in 15th. Field begins to roll now down the front straightaway. 16th position, Laura Bond. Ellis Stevens back in 17. 18th to T.M. Hauser. Those are the cars that took down times in the qualifying session. 21 drivers, although here this afternoon. 19th, Jamie Rush. We're 20th position to Rocco Horvat and Dave Jinks, Steve. Going to round out our 21 car field as we go around this racetrack 2 wide until we get set to get this one underway and get 2015, the racing season, kicked off.
Yeah, it's been a very lonely 2 weeks here on Checkered Flag Interactive without the Sunday evening afternoon broadcast here, so we're very excited to get the new year kicked off at Road America here for the Rose IndyCar Series. Again, race number 3. We've got quite a few more races left this year. We have some road courses, then we go to the ovals and back-to-back after that. So it's going to be exciting. Now we're back on the road courses after the last race we had at Homestead, Miami, and we are ready to take the green flag. It's going to be a little bit here as these drivers head around this tricky road course, but everyone's got their gloves on tight, their helmets on and strapped in, and we are ready for the green flag.
What we saw at Homestead, Miami is that these cars punch a big hole in the air. Okay, it's a road course, but with these long straightaways, draft is key. Look where these guys are coming up on right now. Corner number 5. This is a very big passing zone right here. You're going to have back-to-back 90-degree corners up the hill down through 6 before you head into the carousel on the back area of the racetrack. Again, under-braking, over-braking, going to the inside. Alex Simpson was racing with Daniel Benefield. They were just driving around each other rather in practice, but he schooled him on how to drive it into a corner. No surprise that Simpson's up top. Remember, he dominated at the season points opener at Interlagos. Is it going to be a similar story tonight? Is it going to be the 14 car who is dominant, fastest in practice, qualified on pole? That's where he sits right now. Or is somebody else going to challenge? Another thing I noticed, these guys are getting really loose coming off the corner. You might feel like Superman in these cars around these turns here. They got a lot of wheel in them, but you can't get too aggressive on that throttle. A lot of people were looping them coming out, so you really got to be generous on that gas, getting back to it out of the corners, which means tonight's obviously going to be a very exciting race as always. The first 2 have been exciting. We got back-to-back road courses again, Road America and Sebring, and then obviously the ovals mixed in there as well. Next oval going to be the Iowa Speedway coming up in 2 weeks' time. Obviously, again, Sebring in 1 week. So a lot of exciting races coming up, but obviously Road America, one of my personal favorite racetracks. Again, it's a staple in American road racing, and I think we're going to be in for a treat tonight with 21 cars sitting to start this one off.
Yeah, definitely. These guys, they will be going about 15 laps on a single fuel run. Tires will not be a big issue here at these road courses. These Dolaras definitely are not that hard on tires at this place, but everyone will most likely be getting tires at every single time they come down pit road, at least under green flag, that is. Pit stops take about 30 seconds by the time they get in and out of the stall and back out on the track. They're going to be going about half of a lap down. And these drivers here can run anywhere between 1 minute and 42 seconds, and that's for the faster guys here, and to about 1:45 around this track.
And again, those passing zones going to be at the end of the long straightaways. Obviously, you have the Road America straight down that front straightaway, up the hill, down to corner 1. That's a major one. Down the Moraine Sweep, you got corner 5 that we talked about. Down the Kettle Bottoms through Canada corner. That corner number 12, that right-hander near the end of the course. Those are going to be some major passing zones, as well as the technical portion. About corners 4 through 9 is a lot of back-to-back left and right-handers. It's a very technical section of the racetrack as well. That's going to be a key place for time to be made up and lost. Pace cars out away, we're getting set to go.
Wasting no time, our leader Alex Simpson is away, green flag in the air.
Side-by-side challenge already for the number 2 position to the inside. Already now going down into quarter number 1 and through and clear on Brandon Trano is Michael DeJong. So started 4th, he exits quarter number 1 in P2 as he made that move down to the inside. Simpson clear by about 4 car lengths, that is for the top position. Daniel Benefield sits back just behind Brandon Trano now, who has slid back to what's going to be the 3rd spot, and very quickly single file as they all cycle out of quarter number 3.
Yeah, wasting no time to get single file. While this track is quite a long road course, it's not very wide. A lot of these corners are very wide themselves, but then the straightaways soon after, they really close down and you can't really fit 3 wide cars here, and it's hard to make passes at times. Definitely have to time your passes well here, as the front of the pack's already started to pull away from some of the field here.
And these long straightaways paired with sharp corners require late braking. Low downforce setups on these cars make for slow speed sections to be very bumpy and very tricky as well. Again, that's what we talked about, corners 4 through 9. You see Alex Simpson trying to pull away right now, going down the back straightaway portion of this racetrack around a sweeping right-hander. And then he's going to come down through and obviously continue on the track. But you got to get out in that clean air. Coming down now to Canada Quarter, that's another major passing zone. The battle for second, not close enough to give Brandon Trano an opportunity to try to make a move on. That was Michael DeJong, who used up a lot of racetrack that time through. Got those tires out in the grass. No harm, no foul. He continues to sit in second position. Looks like everybody so far keeping it on track.
I don't know about that. We saw Cam Stark in the number 24 drive it off at about turn 5 there. And then right after that, we saw the number 65, Eric Davis. He got tight off the corner with Carton on his inside. He went off into the dirt, not very hard. No damage on any of those cars, but Cam Stark lost a lot of positions there. He lost about 5 positions when he went off there into the gravel trap.
This racetrack is very unforgiving. You'll go to some street circuits. Again, this is a road course, and you got the asphalt that you're driving on, and then there's grass. There's some tracks that don't have runoffs in the corners. There's a couple of these corners that do have a little bit of leeway in that regard. But for the most part, if you overshoot a corner, it's very unforgiving because you got tire, you got gravel right there. It's going to suck you out off the racetrack. It's going to cost you a lot of time to kind of tiptoe that thing back onto the racing surface, get back going. So it's a very technically demanding racetrack. Alex Simpson leads by 1.7 seconds over Michael DeJong, who again has been able to get that number 2 position. That battle for second, still pretty hot and close though. Brandon Trano, who started in 3rd position behind our leader, is trying to be able to get back up and through. That Michael DeJong has already picked up 2 spots, again got P2 by the time we exited corner 1. And Trano has challenged a couple of times, and looks like DeJong has been able to pull a little bit of a gap right now so far. That is the battle for second. They're separated by just about a half a second.
We've still got a large pack of cars here about mid-pack. Everyone from 8th on back, still in a pretty big group here. As we said pre-race, while this is a road course, downforce and drafting is going to come into play here on the long straightaways, and that's going to keep some of these drivers, as long as they can compete in the corners, they'll be pretty close to each other here, as we've got Cam Stark trying to hold off the number 3 of Jamie Rushworth there, while trying to make the pass on Barry Rowland there to make it into the top 10 once again after going off on lap number 1 there.
And you see right there is going to be the inside move by Jamie Rushworth up the hill to the right-hand side, which will give that number 3 machine the inside, and he's going to go all the way up and try to make a move on the 54. Barry Rowland does so, contact nearly behind them, as it was the Cam Stark machine who tried to follow through and made slight contact with the right rear of the Barry Rowland machine. Both of those guys, no harm, no foul. They stay on track. Does not look like too severe damage, but Jamie Rushworth using one of those long straightaways and braking zones like we talked about at the top of the broadcast as the place to look for passes. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone there, and he moves up 2 positions to 10th.
I'm taking a look right now at the number 54, Barry Rowland there. It looks like he has some wing damage on the back of that car, Evan. If you take a look at it, the right side is really bent up there.
That would be from that contact with Cam Stark. And again, the 24 just got into him going down into the corner. The 24's actually been able to pass now that 54 of Barry Rowland. And 24 car's going to be able to go through and on Cam Stark. He got him with what would be the left front of the 24. Looks like Stark's machine is in pretty fine condition considering the contact. Again, Rowland getting the worst end of that, or the short end of the stick. He does have some right side damage on that wing that is on the back of that race car. And obviously aerodynamics rather important. Not as much really at a road course as you'd say at a big oval like Homestead where drafting is at a preview, but it is going to hinder him a little bit, and you can see because him and Stark were pretty much hanging nose to nose with each other before that contact. Now the 24 starting to sneak away just a little bit and pulling away for what's going to be P11.
We've got Ellis Stevens around there, the number 11 going around. Going to pull up a replay of that.
I'll tell you, Alex Simpson's fast here, but Jamie Rushworth is up 10 positions so far, Steve. We talked about him earlier. Got 3 spots on that lap alone. He's closing in on Dennis Carice and Michael Thompson. That 3 car is pretty fast. He was second fastest in practice. Again, did not get a time in qualifying. He's got some speed. He's already again up 10, and I expect him to make a couple of more moves this lap as he's in that pack of about 5-6 cars that are within a few seconds of each other mid-pack. He could be moving forward pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, though, with 43 laps on the board, that's going to be a long race for some of these drivers. And as the field spreads out, the caution, chances are we will not have a full course caution. And the unfortunate disadvantage of even being fast and starting in the rear of the field, it's simply so hard to make passes here at times. And it just, once you lose the leader, I mean, right now, Alex Simpson is 4 seconds ahead of second place. And even for Michael DeJong there to make up that time, it's going to take at least 10 laps, assuming he was faster. So it's going to be a long journey up for there Jamie Rushworth, but we'll have to see how far he makes it, because he's definitely looking very sporty there in that number 3.
Yeah, you never want to hurt yourself with a poor qualifying effort. And oh, over driving that corner there, somebody's out Michael Thompson. That's Canada corner. Corner 12, he was right in front of Jamie Rushworth, really drove it in hard to the corner, locked it up, was out in the sand, and was able to put it in reverse before he got into the tires, but that's going to give a position to Jamie Rushworth. Andrew Woodhouse has been able to get around. Cam Stark, Barry Rowland, I believe, has also been able to make that pass, so Michael Thompson now off track again in corner 14, trying to get his rhythm back, and he's going to go from a top 10 position, losing about 7 spots in that second half of the track as he still tries to get back up the speed. Very costly.
Well, that is very, very costly. He's going to lose a lot of track position, Evan. He doesn't have any damage, and that's definitely, I'm pretty sure he'd choose having some lost positions than he would having a totaled car. So unfortunately for him, he's going to lose some positions here. He's going to fall back into 17th place, but he's looking on the back bumper of Dave Jinks right now in the 76, and it looks like he will go side by side for the drag race battle down this long straightaway.
Yeah, I do feel, again, he was able to slow that thing down, because if he stuffed it into the tires, it would have been a whole different story. He was able to stop it in time before he did that, so he does not have the damage. He's able to get back going, was able to scrub the marbles off those tires, and again, as you said, be able to make that pass on the Dave Jinks machine. He is faster than the cars that he's sitting around right now. Again, he's a top 10 car, was qualified 10th, was 13th in practice, and was running right there at the tail end of the top 10, so he is faster than these guys like the TM Hausers, the Laura Bonds, who he's going to have to make his way back up and through. But the same point that you talked about when we were discussing Jamie Rushworth, when you lose that time, you may be faster than the people around you, but guys up front, you're going to dig yourself that much more of a hole. you just can't afford that realistically if you want a shot. I mean, even if somebody up front has some sort of a bobble, you're that much further away to be able to capitalize on that mistake. So it looks like Miguel Martinez has actually taken it behind the wall. His night has come to a premature close in the number 17 machine, and he actually got involved in an incident back on lap number 1. He got turned around sideways, actually got into one of the inside retaining walls. It wasn't too severe damage, but he escaped it out, took the tow to pit road, and since then he is now officially retired from the race.
Right now, the battle for second is still on. Brandon Traino trying to chase down the number 5. But with that draft, it's not going to be too hard to stay in touch. These drivers looking very sporty around these corners. However, they are still losing almost half of a second.
We got Andrew Woodhouse. He's out in the sand, 3 wide, trying to get around him, and he had some assistance getting around. It looks like this was into corner number 5, down through the moraine sweep, and it was Cam Stark behind him for 9th position. Got a little bit into the left rear in the 4, instantly turned sideways, and actually an amazing save by Andrew Woodhouse. Locked it up and was able to keep that thing back going and relatively lose not too significant of time. He will lose the 2 spots to Cam Stark and Gary Borkenhagen, but he did have some assistance there going into the corner after contact between his number 4 and the 24 of Cam Stark.
Yeah, we pulled it up on the screen there. Surprisingly, even though he did get into the back bumper, there may be a little bit of netcode involved, Evan. The number 9 or number 24 of Cam Stark, he has no front wing damage, and that looked like a pretty considerable hit as we've got a car around right behind him, Dennis Garis.
Yeah, Garis spinning right now, coming out of a quarter that was heading into the carousel area. He spins out the number 16, and that was dangerous because he spun right back across the racing surface. Woodhouse was able to sneak through. Garis is able to get back going, but thankfully he did not really lock it up. He turned that wheel to kind of slide back to face the right direction, and he's now battling side by side down the front straightaway with Gary Borkenhagen. Borkenhagen going to give him that position, which is going to be P11, but that was a close call. Woodhouse could have easily gotten taken out in that, as that 16 was sideways in the middle of the traffic, essentially around what could have been a blind corner.
Jamie Rushworth now battling for the 6th position. There, he's going to go on the inside. There, the number 3 is going to be getting the preferred line in the next corner. He's going to have to back out of it early there. The number 69 will pull right back around him, and they will go battling down towards the technical parts of the corners here.
These guys continuing to battle. One of the closest battles on track, the 2 Martini cars right now, between Daniel Benefield and, again, just behind him, Jamie Rushworth. Rushworth right now, 12 positions in the positive as he sits 7th right now. But again, after starting way back on essentially the last row, finds himself 19 seconds back from, no surprise, front of the field, the number 14 of Alex Simpson. Dominant at Interlagos, the season points opener, had a really good run at Homestead. Obviously, being a pro driver on the road side of things at iRacing, we expect him to be strong, and right now Simpson is 6 seconds to the good over Michael DeJong, who him and Brandon Traino, again, still relatively close. They've been like this essentially, Steve, since the drop of the green flag on that first lap. They're separated right now by about 0.5 of a second, so half a second between the 5 and the 9 for positions 2 and position number 3 right now. They're cycling through corners number 3 right now before they go down one of those first straightaways into 4, 5, 6, and then obviously that very rhythmic time section there, which passing could be at a premium. Traino trying to close in. He's got a pretty good run on Michael DeJong this time, and he's going to snap a line, try to make a move, and we're going to go at it side by side. That's for P2. Contact now as Traino made a slight movement to the right going into that corner. He actually got into DeJong, and that number 5 machine went around.
He goes around and he's trying to get things situated. He looks to be losing almost a full 15 seconds there. After that number 5 got knocked around in that corner, he got passed by Andreas Werner there. The number 25 will move up into 3rd place. But now, Michael DeJong is now 20 seconds back from the leader, and that is a massive loss for him, as just before that incident they were only about 6 seconds behind. So now the number 5 of Michael DeJong, he has a long journey ahead of him. No damage on that IndyCar, luckily. Pit stops will be coming by in about 6 to 7 laps, Evan, so we'll have to see how that car holds up. Those tires might be superheated there after a very slight slide, but now what you got to look for is Eric Davis in the number 65, Jamie Rushworth, and Daniel Benefield are now starting to close in on this number 5.
Yeah, and again, you said that Jachagi was able to get away with relatively no damage on that machine. It did cost him a lot of time. Obviously, he's not going to be happy with the way that went down after the contact with Trainer, who had inside position. They were closing in rather quickly on one of those machines just up in front of them, so they kind of got a little bit heavier on the brakes, and that may have caused Trainer to make that slight movement to the right that ended up getting him into the number 5 of Michael DeJong. Race Control has issued a warning for contact to the driver of the number 24 car. That's Cam Stark. Again, we saw him make contact just a few laps ago, and he's been given a warning by Race Control for that as he battles right now with Barry Rowland, and he's able to get the spot 24 car up to 9th.
And you see there, as he passes Barry, take a look at the back of the wing again. We noted it earlier, but Cam Stark and Barry got together earlier on in the event, and that is where that wing damage came from on the number 54.
And you can see it's dragging down Barry a little bit on corner entry and really the straightaway speed. Barry rolling there, braking early to allow that 24 of Cam Stark to be able to get through and clear no issue. But 24 overshot corner 3. And again, there's not much of a runoff. There's a little bit of curbing down there, but other than that, you're right out in the grass. So the 24 kind of kicked up some dust, lost some time, and it was actually Barry Rowland who was able to get around him. The 24 car then very easily, once he got back on track, was able to get back to the speed, get up to the gears, and he was able to recomplete that pass on the 54. This all going on for, again, 9th position. So these two cars make up the tail end of the top 10 right now. So although back again to Brandon Trano, the number 9 car, who was battling with the 5 of Michael DeJong, he did lose maybe half a second at that exchange. Now it's to 9.4 seconds total. Only good news for the 9 car is that he really doesn't have to worry about anybody immediately near him. It's about 8 seconds back to Andreas Werner in the number 25 car, who sits in the top 3 spot right now, podium position after starting in 5th. The top 2 sit right where they started. Pole sitter Alex Simpson still leads, and now Brandon Trano, who started this race in 2nd position, has gotten back to that spot.
And now right here, as we've completed 10 laps here at Road America, we're going to head over to a quick commercial break. Checkered Flag Interactive with Steve Bonesteel and Evan Pasoko up in the booth. We'll be right back. Do not go away. We've got more road course action right around the corner.
Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Lichtenberg, driver for Broken Arrow, and welcome to Road America here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. To give you some quick facts about this track, it comes in at 4 miles long, has 14 turns, and it was originally built in 1955 in response to public road racing being banned in the state. So interestingly, each of the corners is modeled after a real road somewhere in the surrounding village. As we now head down to turn 1, hard braking zone. Actually, I missed the braking zone altogether and missed the apex too. We now head into turn 3. Turn 3 very similar to turn 1, a little bit tighter corner, slower corner. Took that one in second. As we now head down the second of the 3 main straightaways here at the track, under the Sargento Bridge. We now head through the forest, the moraine sweep, down into turn 5, downhill braking zone, so obviously very difficult, easy to lock up your brakes. One of the best places to pass though if you're brave enough. We now head up through turn 6 and under the Corvette Bridge. Power down as soon as you can for the hurry downs. Quick right-hander here, you could take this flat out in Q trim if you're brave enough. We now head down to turn 8 and head under the Johnsonville Bridge for the carousel, one of the longest winding corners in all of racing. One of the classic corners for this track. Out of the carousel we now head for the kink, one of the more dangerous corners on this track. Flat out, but you could even get a little wheel spin or even loose if you're not careful. Very difficult corners. We now head to turn 12 or Canada corner. Originally got its name actually because after race weekends when the track was being cleaned up, Canadian beer and import taxes were found, and the name has stuck ever since. We now head through turn 14, the last corner of this track. Power down, use as much of the track as you can. So we now head uphill to the start-finish line. And that is a lap of Road America.
Welcome back live here at Road America, on board with the leader Alex Simpson here as we take a look at his lap around this racetrack here. He's still running 1 minute 42 seconds around this track, which is by far the fastest out of everyone around the circuit right now.
And we posed the question at the top of the broadcast, was it going to be another Alex Simpson show like Interlagos? He was fastest, or P1 at everything so far, practice qualifying, still sitting there right now, and still looking stout. As you said, fastest car on track by about a couple of tenths per lap. He's running about 7 tenths faster per lap than the likes of Brandon Treno, over a second faster than third place Andreas Werner, that number 25 car. Simpson can't just sit back and relax, however. A mistake can cost you, as we've seen to a couple of people here, Steve, a lot of time. Even a simple bobble, get out in the grass, is going to cost you a lot of time to tiptoe back onto the racing surface, get back up to speed. You can't afford to throw away a lot of time. So although 12 seconds is good right now is a long time for Alex Simpson, this race still has a long way to go. We've got pit stops going up. There's so many different ways that you can throw a race like this away that you really have to stay disciplined for all 43 laps, which is tough for some drivers. Alex, being a seasoned veteran at the road course, is going to be a little bit easier on him, but you'll definitely see the lap times, even on new tires, although it's not that big of a difference, they're going to be a little bit slower maybe in the latter stages, maybe even that middle portion of the race when you kind of fade away just a little bit. Slower than the top of the race, slower than the end of the race where you're really up on it, because you just got to be so consistent lap in and lap out. You can't give anything up.
Yeah, right now, and Alex is doing a great job where he is right now, extending that lead. If he has to slow down for a lap or two because he starts to get uncomfortable in the car before pit stops, he has time to do it. He has 13 seconds now behind him till you get to Brandon Treno, so he's not sitting in a bad position nonetheless. I mean, although it's like you said, Evan, if he does go around, he's going to find himself in big time trouble, because it takes a good bit of time here with these grassy surfaces, the gravel pits on the side of the track. It can take a long time to get back onto the racing surface as he dives down pit road.
Coming down right now, we saw a lot of drivers in a practice session practicing their pit road entrance. Slow is our second place car. Brandon Trano had a small, looks like a connection blip there. He's now back on track, and he rounds out of the final corner, corner 14. Gonna see if the number 9 car comes down. No, he will stay out this time through, which leaves Alex Simpson down on pit road. Gonna put that number 9 car into the top spot, but going that uphill section into a braking area to get down to pit road speed, that was another tricky thing that the drivers were working on. Clean entry for Simpson. He's in his number 1 stall.
Something you guys need to note at home right now, and everyone at the track, Brandon Trano, while he is in the lead right now, due to pit stops, Andreas Warner in the number 25, Evan, is right behind him. Less than a second right now, and he's starting to close in quite rapidly.
Yeah, it's about a 0.8 of a second gap at the stripe. You see Warner really trying to dig as they enter corner 5 there. They're going to go up this short chute up the hill, another 90-degree left-hander through 6, and then you have hurried downs into the carousel area. Warner trying to close in, and he's obviously going to swing it out for the apex. Gets off track there just a little bit. Really digging. You can see he's kind of picked up that intensity once he got Brandon Trano up in front of him.
We've got quite a few drivers still on pit road. Andrew Woodhouse is one of the drivers that came down to make his first pit stop. Actually, I take that back. He's already made 2 pit stops here this race, so interesting to see what happened to him.
Yeah, looking at the fuel strategy-wise at a 43-lap race, this should fairly easily be a 2-stop race to make it the distance in this one. Woodhouse had come down pit road. He's right now back in 8th position, so obviously that scoring is going to have to cycle through as he did pit this time by, but he was a top 10 car, 9th. That's kind of where he's been running so far all race long at a number 4 machine, so he's working right now down at a quarter number 6, and Simpson's going to have to quote-unquote get back to the lead. Brandon Trano, who cycled to the top spot, is now down pit road. Andreas Werner is in also, so the top 2 on track now bringing it down, and no doubt Alex Simpson, as he comes flying at a quarter number 14 down the road America straight, will retain the number 1 position.
And just like that, Alex Simpson is back to the lead. Now, by the time these drivers head out of pit lane, it's going to be interesting to take a look at how big the gap has grown, if it's shrunk, if it's grown. We'll have to see. It's going to be a little bit, probably at least 1 or 2 laps here before cycling comes around to take a look and see what that gap's at. But right now, Alex Simpson, he had a very clean pit stop, and as it looks like right now, he's already 18, almost 19 seconds ahead of Brandon Trano after pit stops.
Alex Simpson working by some lap traffic. Laura Bond going off at a racing surface, allowing him to go by no harm, no foul in that exchange. Race control is reminding these drivers about the pit lane protocol, and that is when you're entering your stall. Obviously, there's no crew guys down there, but you got to go into your stall. You're not allowed to cut through more than 3 stalls. So a couple of drivers pushing out a little bit, so race control reminding them that they can go through no more than 3 stalls prior to theirs to enter. So a little bit of, obviously, protocol reminders in that regards. We've seen Cam Stark have a contact warning. So race control really all over these guys. Very disciplined as well. You got to stay in the guidelines that they leave you, and you'll have no problem. But if you try to do anything that's not allowed, race control is going to be all over it, and they're keeping an eye, the eye in the sky.
As we mentioned earlier, Jamie Rushworth in the number 3. He is still looking very strong. Now up in the top 5, he's got Michael DeJong and Andreas Warner right in front of him. So that number 3 machine is moving up through the field quite rapidly after a very clean pit stop here. And now he is almost on the back bumper of that number 5 car. I guess it's not really even a bumper, the rear wing, I guess you could call it there. All 3 of these cars running very identical lap times, but I've got a feeling once the number 3 gets around these guys, and he's going to, there's no doubt about it, unless something happens to him, he's going to start to pull away.
We talked about Jamie Rushworth all race long, started back in 19th. If he was, you know, a top 5 car in qualifying, he'd probably be second right now, but because of where he started, he's been stuck back in traffic, and although he's been making rather quick work of everybody else, now finds himself 25 seconds to the negative second-wise over Alex Simpson. Took a beat to the inside, that time on the 5 of Michael DeJong. That was into quarter number 3. Does not quite work. DeJong not going to roll over and give it up because Michael was just in second position earlier in this race. Steve made a great pass in turn 1 on the start of the race. Contact with Brandon Treno sent him back, so DeJong is also trying to work over Andreas Werner, while at the same time Jamie Rushworth is trying to get around the 5. That's where things can get ugly real quick. If you're trying to make a pass on somebody and they're really not checking their mirrors because you got DeJong here who's focused on Andreas Werner, if he's looking at the guy in front of him trying to set him up for a pass, you may stick the nose to the inside, he may not pay attention, and that's where contact can be made. So these 3 guys, nice close-knit. If they're all trying to get around each other and, you know, it's almost a scramble at times going into the corner, somebody peeks out, tucks back in line, contact can be a possibility in these situations, so these guys got to stay up on it. And a great run by Jamie Rushworth that time, was unable to get to the inside position to take a look on Michael DeJong that time, but this is great battle going on. These 3 cars tucked up within about a second of each other.
Definitely, while it's a great battle, these drivers definitely need to be careful here. You see these drivers going off just a little bit, kicking up some dust. That's a-okay, but you push it one wheel too far, Evan, and around you're going to go. And these Indy cars very fragile. There's not a lot of runoff in some of these quick corners here. So these guys got to be careful while they're battling. Very thin racetracking surface here, and there's really only a certain way you can run a lot of these corners. You can't really dive it in 2 and 3 wide. You either have to yield or really push the issue, and that could always end up in definitely a day off to the beach, if you know what I mean.
It's very easy to hit the sand here, and it's not quite the best weather for it. It is 76 Fahrenheit, so it's better than some part of the country, but it's a cloudy day at Road America. It's also very interesting that you see, obviously, road course racing is very, you know, momentum-based. You're racing the track more, as when we go to the ovals, you're really racing the other competitors a little bit more, trying to work the draft, get around them, stuff like that in this regard. You got Andreas Werner, who sits 3rd right now. When he kind of got a little bit close to Brandon Treno there on that cycle of stops, it was the 25 who started to get a little bit more aggressive, and you can't really overstep that boundary too much, although you may just be riding around by yourself. If you're a guy like 6th position Daniel Benefield, you got 7 seconds to the guy in front of you, 8 to the guy behind you, you're still running almost essentially some of your fastest laps. You're really not slacking off. So when you get somebody in front of you, you try to give it a little bit more. It's very easy to, you know, get in over your head, overshoot the corners, which is something that a guy like a Jamie Rushworth or Michael DeJong right now, 5th and 4th respectively on the racetrack, have to worry about, as well as don't force the issue. Sure, you want the position. It is lap 18 of a 43-lap race, so closing in on the halfway point. There isn't a huge amount of time to just kind of sit around, but there's still a good portion of this race to go. Don't get over your head. Don't let that other guy dictate your line and hope that you can set him up or he slips up to make that pass, because again, like you said, some of these runoff spaces not very big. You got tires, maybe 5 feet once you get from the asphalt to the grass to that tire barrier, sand traps as well. Not a forgiving racetrack.
Road America is not forgiving, and just as you mentioned, the number 69 of Daniel Benefield there in 6th, he ended up going around there and lost about 15 seconds. The number 69 barely missed that inside retainer wall, so no damage for Daniel Benefield there now in 7th, but he's going to be chasing down Eric Davis in the number 65 to again make that pass after he spent about 5 laps trying to chase him down. He's now back behind him once again.
And that's the exact situation we were referring to again. If it's an Alex Simpson that we talked about, if Alex Simpson has a small bobble like that, 15 seconds, that's then a 6-second gap. You know, that he's going from a 21-second gap. Very easy, although that is a huge cushion. And I do anticipate if this race continues and he sticks up the pace that the number 14 is keeping, and we don't see a full course caution, which I don't expect unless there's a major incident, the 14 is going to be somewhere in a range, if the stats don't lie, of almost nearly 45 seconds in front of the field if he stays clean on track, which is something that Alex has done a great job of at a track like Interlagos. Steve, we saw a lot of guys that have contact with each other, but also a lot of, you know, single car incidents. You know, it's hard to keep it on track the whole time. He's obviously very experienced at the road courses, so he knows how to compose himself, per se, on these kind of races. But it's a perfect example of just a small mistake You know, you can work 17 laps to get those 15 seconds. You can be straight flying a second faster than everybody for 15 laps. One small mistake takes that all away, which is one of the most, you know, the irony of racing is you can work so hard to get a position, and it's just a split-second mistake that you make that takes all that time that you have gained away.
Actually, something interesting, Alex Simpson last time around, he must have gotten off track at some point or another. We'll see if we can pull up a replay. He lost almost 5 seconds on that last lap.
Yeah, that gap has gone down to 16 seconds. He did have trouble. It was corner 14. Coming to the start-finish line, just got onto the curbing, back end just stepped down on him. He locked it up, actually, had come to a complete stop and got back to the gas going up the hill. So again, small mistake. Didn't go off track, didn't get in the fence, but got sideways, had to lock him up. 5 seconds, just like that. Nothing is guaranteed.
As we've still got this battle going on for third, Andreas Werner's now up still in front of Jamie Rushworth and Michael De Jong as the battle continues to heat up, but Michael's really fallen off the times, and so has the number 25 of Andreas Werner. But another driver there that was in that group, Jamie Rushworth, he fell off quite a bit after going off the track just a few minutes ago.
Talked about the pit stop notifications that race control was giving on the amount of stalls that these guys are allowed to cross through. We have a couple of pit stall violations for the number 69 car of Daniel Benefield, as well as the number 4 of Andrew Woodhouse, the number 99 of Gary Borkenhagen, and the number 24 of Cam Stark. Race control has announced that there are going to be no more warnings, which with another round of pit stops coming up, something to keep an eye on if anybody gets the hammer on that one, and race control would penalize them for another infraction.
Just again taking a look at the only really battle on track for position, Andreas Werner in the number 25. He's got the number 5 of Michael De Jong right on his back bumper, as they've been all race long pretty much. These two very fast cars, and Michael De Jong there, he was up in front of these drivers, up in third place for quite some time, ended up getting off the track there, and now he's having a lot of trouble working his way back up. These guys have not been able to really gain much time on second place, Brandon Trano, but Brandon Trano also really hasn't lost any more time to the leader after Alex Simpson went around.
We had an accident just about 2 laps ago, just caught glimpses of this. The TM Hauser entry had trouble, looks like through corner number 13A, that left-hander before you get down to the final one. This is back on lap 18 for the number 56 car. Just got sideways, really didn't drive it in aggressively onto the curbing there. Just got back to the gas, and like I said at the top of the show, if you get too aggressively, like we saw in practice, a lot of these guys were trying to find where that limit would be. Thing just went right around on him. Turned the wheel to the right, locked it up immediately, but with that lack of a lot of runoff and only about 6 feet of grass to the fence, plowed the right side of that car into the wall, brought it down pit road. It was crab walking at like a 15-degree angle. He has taken it behind the wall. His night is done, so he will join Miguel Martinez behind the wall, as well as Dennis Garise, who I do believe has taken it behind the wall. He came into the stall. He sits 6 laps down right now, not currently on track, so looks like 3 drivers right now behind the wall. 2 of them are at least officially out of this race.
And now pit stops are going to be right around the corner, anywhere from 5 to 7 laps at the very earliest for some of these drivers. I do know that these drivers are racing pretty hard up towards the front right now. They're making great times around this place, doing 143s, although our leader is still trying to pull away. He's not been able to pull any further away still from Brandon Trano in second, our in-race reporter.
Brandon Trano's had a solid machine, and it's got to be really frustrating, and we talked about it under the commercial break. If you're a guy that's in second position and, you know, the guy in front of you is just pulling away and pulling away, it's frustrating. I feel like it's even more frustrating for Trano, the fact that his speeds are so close to Alex Simpson. Simpson, you know, about a second plus faster than the guys 4th on back in the lineup right now, lap times per lap. But when you're a guy like Brandon Trano who's second, and he's only about 3/10 off per lap, Steve, that close to being on par with Alex Simpson, but you see every lap the ticker's going to go up a couple tenths. I got to feel like that's even more frustrating than Brandon Trano. It's like you don't want to lose a game by a couple of points. You'd rather lose it by a big spread. Brandon Trano is just being squeaked out Alex Simpson-wise lap times per lap. But although it is a 17-second gap, the 14 just has that little bit of an advantage over Treno. Now again, 16 seconds. We've seen Alex Simpson can make a mistake, so Treno can't give up. But it is tough to ride around second position. Know that you're right there with the guy that's been dominant so far. For now, it's going to be the first 2 road courses on the year, but just short. He lost a second that time by.
As you've got the current running order after 22 to 23 laps, now Brandon Treno second, Andreas Warner third, Michael DeJong fourth, Jamie Rushworth fifth, Eric Davis sixth, Daniel Benefield seventh, Andrew Woodhouse eighth, Cam Stark ninth, and Barry Rowland rounding out the top 10. We're going to head over to a quick commercial break. Checkered Flag Interactive will be right back from the racetrack.
Well, I'll tell you, Michael DeJong would really like to be able to get back up and battle with Brandon Treno for second after he feels that that 9 car took that away from him after contact earlier in the race. But it's not surprising that he's been able to get that machine back up to what's going to be a podium position. Andreas Werner behind him, going to get the pass put on him by the 3 of Jamie Rushworth, continuing to go through the field. Now 15 positions in the positive from the start of the race. Again, finds himself significantly far back on Alex Simpson. It's a 28 back to the first place car from that number 3 who now sits in 4th position. It's going to be questions of what ifs for this next week until we roll into Sebring in 1 week's time with the end of Jamie Rushworth on what if you could have got that qualifying lap in. Again, not sure if he was just unable to make it or if there was some sort of a penalty that forced him to start at the back, but he did start 19th, obviously costing him a lot of track position. But I mean, you just got to think, if he was a top 2, top 3 car, Steve, he'd be right up there with the Alex Simpsons, the Brandon Trenos for sure. Top 3's not out of the question. I feel like he's going to be able to put up a fight with Michael DeJong here in the second half of the race. DeJong is no slouch by any means, but Jamie Rushworth running about 8/10 faster per lap right now than that 5 car, and closing in, it's about a 2-second gap. Don't count that 3 out for a podium position, which would be really great considering, again, he would have started back on row 10.
Yeah, right now Brandon Treno was credited with leading 1 lap, so he does have that on his records at least. They're in second place. Michael DeJong now is moved up into 3rd, as we earlier noted. He's starting to actually pull away there Evan from the number 3 of Jamie Rushworth. That's going to be interesting here, as pit stops are about 4 to 5 laps away for some of these drivers. I do believe it'll be one of the shorter stints of the race, as after that they'll only have about 15 laps left in the event. So we'll have to see who decides to come on down first. Tires do not make much of a difference here. Your lap times aren't much slower on older tires, as we've got Andreas Werner actually got off the course there for a second.
Somebody else is off in the grass just in front of Jamie Rushworth. It is the Michael De Jong machine, so that's going to cost that number 5 car a little bit of time, as that was coming out of corner 14, which is the final corner on this 14-turn circuit. We're running the full course here tonight, so all 14 turns in play. That's the final, just about a 90-degree right-hander before you go up the big hill down the front straightaway to complete and then start your next lap. So that gap between De Jong and Rushworth has now been closed down to just about 1.2 seconds between those two cars. Rushworth, a fierce competitor, again closing in very fast, said that I think he's going to be able to put up a fight with De Jong, and you know, as much as you say you don't, you're going to be looking at that guy, and you talk to a race car driver and say, what's the key, you know, battling in traffic, and it's just to not, you know, even think of the guy behind you. Keep your eyes pointed forward. Michael De Jong knows that Jamie Rushworth is closing. He has that relative up. He can see that interval closing. He can see that white number 3 Martini entry getting bigger and bigger in his rearview mirror. He knows he's coming, and the 3 car is going to be starting to apply some pressure here in these next few laps as he's really closing that gap down.
Gary Borkenhagen in 10th place is the last car on the lead lap there, Evan, and now Alex Simpson's just not very far behind him. He'll be coming around the corners probably within about 5 green flag laps, depending on how pit stops play out. And then Alex Simpson will start lapping people, much like he did at Interlagos, our first race of the year.
Well, we got a big trouble. Jamie Rushworth is off track. It is Brandon Traino. Big trouble for the second place car, as he is way off track. Had trouble coming up through, looks like the S's area, spun it out, went off track, and just like that, lost a bunch of time. Steve locked it up. It was the Michael De Jong entry who was able to get around him, and Jamie Rushworth was forced to go on a little bit of an off-road excursion out through the grass to clear Brandon Traino. Just like that, it is now all switched up between second and fourth.
Tell you what, though, Evan, we pulled up the replay on the screen. I guess if you're going to wreck, that's about the best way you can do it. Brandon Traino there 360'd it, got back going, no harm, no foul, aside from the positions and the time lost. And it's much like I said earlier, I'm sure he'd rather have that than to total that car and lose a position at all.
Yeah, again, for the fact that it's very easy to find the wall, and you know, that's a very high-speed section of the racetrack as well through the S's. Better that it happens there than, you know, at the end of a long straightaway where you completely blow it and you spin off into one of those runoffs, catch defense. It was one of the slower sections of the course, I guess you could call it. And again, much like Alex Simpson, who had that one problem at a quarter 14 a handful of laps ago after that first cycle of stops, got sideways, locked it up, there was nobody around him, came to actually complete stop on track, got back going, lost 5 seconds, car still intact, so no harm, no foul as well.
And actually, we just pulled up another replay on your screen. Brandon Traino going into the 4th corner here ended up just going very gently into the inside wall, and for some reason he ended up taking a tow, so our in-race reporter down on pit road taking the tow, and he's going to be losing all of his track position now for sure.
Jamie Rushworth making a move down the front straightaway. He's going to go on the left-hand side around Michael De Jong, so give it to the number 3 car. And again, via the trouble not too long ago for the Brandon Traino machine, who is actually currently not visible on track. I believe he may be actually, yeah, he has taken it out. So that's going to cycle Jamie Rushworth, who I was talking about, Steve, might be able to get a podium, 2nd position.
He's 34 seconds ahead or behind from our leader right now, so I don't really see much hope for him catching him, assuming everyone keeps it on track. Alex Simpson now still running very quickly around this track, running about half of a second faster than Jamie Rushworth. And I don't really think anyone's going to be able to catch him unless something happens to him.
Yeah, again, we saw just a small blip that he had earlier cost him about 5 seconds. I said if he continues at the pace, he'll be somewhere in the range of 45 seconds out. Well, the next closest car to him has dropped out of the race now, so it's going to go back to what was third at the time, a 34-second gap between him and Michael DeJong, who actually Jamie Rushworth, who has been able to again make that pass on the number 5. That scoring will cycle through this next time by 8 cars. Do remain on the lead lap. Last car on the lead lap, the Gary Borkenhagen machine, started 11th. He's up 3 spots to 8th, and is about a minute and 29 seconds or so back from race leader Alex Simpson. He would be the next driver that would be in immediate risk of losing his lead lap status. 21 Rocco Horvath, he is down pit road around 18th position, but so far just about now 3-4 guys have retired from this race. Still a fair amount of cars out on track.
And now we have a moment to pull up our in-race reporter, Brandon Trano, up into the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Oh, not much. Just watching this race here. What happened to you there going in that corner?
Honestly, I don't know. The car has never done that. I'm just going to guess that I took the curving wrong. I may hit it on the right side and push the car out wide and just, you know, hop the curves. I mean, even hopping a little bump at this car, it's just, it upsets it so much, and ended up upsetting it enough where I lost control and hit the inside tire barriers not short after, and it had no speed, and I couldn't get through the corner, so I pulled it off before I took somebody else out.
Definitely an unfortunate way to end the race here. You were running very strong in second. Tell us a little bit on what do you even know what Alex Simpson's being able to do right now to be able to pull away like he is?
All I know is that Alex is one badass driver. He's always a second and a half quicker than me, so to be within a second of him is something substantial, but him to be pulling the laps that he is just incredible.
Now, next week we go to another road course. What are your thoughts going there, and are you more excited to head over back to the oval parts where we will head to Iowa next?
For the next road course, I just actually want to finish the race and hopefully what is a top 5 instead of wrecking out again. With the ovals, I feel like I'm a definite front runner, so I'm just going to have to put my head down and try to make up some gaps on the oval side.
Alright, well, thank you for coming up into the booth. That is the driver who was up in second place for the majority of this race, Brandon Trano. Pit stops have already began here on lap 30 of 43. These drivers nearing the final stages of this race, Evan. Right now, Michael DeJong has cycled through to the lead. He has not come down pit road quite yet, and we will be looking for him to do that within the next lap or two. Definitely, it's interesting how far he's ahead right now of Alex Simpson, who came down pit road. He's only 5 seconds ahead of him, and Alex Simpson's on the back bumper pretty much of Andreas Werner, who's in second place right now.
And that's going to be obviously the final stop for the Alex Simpson camp, again with the cycle of pit stops at the amount that you can make on a tank of fuel here, coming in again just in about 14-15 laps. He essentially has 14 laps to go that time he crosses the start-finish line to take on that fuel. So, well, balancing this race out into thirds and obviously creating sections, go from point A to point B, which kind of helps you focus, dividing this race up into a little bit of segments to stop. You know, it actually works out great, the amount of laps that these guys have with the fuel mileage, that it's down to something like that. We've seen races in the past. Interlagos was one earlier on the road course, Steve, where there was a little bit of leniency, so there was going to be one of those cycles between stops that was going to be a little bit shorter. We saw a little bit of differential between different drivers and how that'll work, because this one essentially laid out your fuel strategy for you. Not too much in that regard as far as, you know, a little bit of drama. Michael DeJong is down pit road, Andreas Werner down as well, so they're going to come in from second and third.
Jamie Rushworth only fell back to 5th place after making his second stop of the race. He is good to go till the finish, and he's about 32 seconds behind our leader right now, and maybe actually a little bit longer. So he's got a lot of racing left to do here. And what do you really think he might even have a shot at making his way back up to the leader here?
Right now, you see Michael DeJong, and you see right there going to be able to get around him very easily, Jamie Rushworth. And now we're in the essentially the closing stages of this race. There's still a couple of spots that you can say are up for grabs that I feel like these first 30 laps have kind of weeded people out to the point where they're going to be sitting, obviously, before the cycle stops, so some of the scoring still needs to cycle through, pretty much where you're going to finish. I think if there's going to be any more position changes, it's going to be on somebody making some sort of a mistake. Andreas Warner working around the lap machine of Michael Thompson that time by. I feel like everybody who's going places, they've kind of reached their destination at this point. And again, anything plus or minus from here on out is going to be from somebody having some sort of a mistake. Alex Simpson obviously wanting to avoid that, has a pretty good cushion, doesn't really need to force the envelope too much as he continues to sit up front.
And now, after our second round of pit stops here tonight, you are watching the Rose DW12 series on Checkered Flag Interactive Sunday afternoons each and every weekend after a 2-week holiday break. You are listening to Steve Bonesteel and Evan Pasoko in the booth. Do not go away. We will be right back. Welcome back live to the Alex Simpson Show here at Road America, where our leader Alex Simpson and the number 14 Dallara has been out in front of the field since the drop of the green flag, and since the point he's been out in front, he's just simply pulled away here as we're coming to 10 laps to go here at Road America.
Well, we predicted it coming in, and we can even say that after our season opener race, which wasn't for points at Michigan, Alex Simpson, a strong run there. Going into Interlagos to kick off the points racing, we anticipated the 14 to be strong. he was dominant. Had a good run 1 week ago back on the oval side of things at the Homestead Miami Speedway. We expected him to be good tonight, and he has done the same. Laura Bond is off track right now. That's the number 32 car. She got around because there was trouble in front of her with Cam Stark. 24 car went around from 6th position, was stopped in the track. They actually made contact that sent her off a little bit. That was a huge kind of melee, and the 24 around once again. Big trouble for Cam Stark. Looks like a lot of front wing damage as well on that number 24 entry.
Pulling up the replay on your screen, we'll take a look at what happened there. The number 24 of Cam Stark diving down into the corner. I mean, this has been one of the corners right here, these corners where it's been really tough for a lot of drivers. You saw him, he really slides it into that corner right there, and then he just, the next corner, does not stick at all. And he's already got that front wing damage, so that probably definitely contributed to the lack of grip he had there. But with that said, Cam Stark goes around again. He's still in the top 10, still running 8th, but he's got a very tough 10 laps ahead of him.
Yeah, though we are again closing in, there's really not a point in this race until you're Alex Simpson and you're up the hill on the final lap and you're down to the final 300 meters or so that you can really call this one safe. Cam Stark has lost a lap after being in 6th position. He's down to 8th right now, 1 lap down, and he's going to have to limp for these next 10 laps with that front end damage, which is hurting him. You see, he's actually going to be forced to bring that machine down pit road. Very costly, as he can drop all the way back. He's got through 13th position as other drivers that are on the same lap as him now. So big trouble for the Cam Stark entry, sliding way back. 2nd through 4th, not all that far away from each other. Separated by 5. Michael DeJong, Andreas Werner, 3rd and 4th, separated by just 0.6 of a second. Closest battle essentially on the racetrack right now, and it's a podium position that hangs in the balance. Werner, who was essentially a top 3 car all race after starting in 5th position, got up to 3rd rather quickly, has dropped back to 4th, which is where Michael DeJong started this race. DeJong again was up in 2nd earlier after contact with Cam Stark, slid back. So both these guys trying to get back to where they were earlier. 3 wide now down the backstretch. What a move by Andreas Werner. Splits the gap to the outside. However, DeJong going to have inside position on that one and hang on for now, but 3 wide.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of those moves that you kind of close your eyes, and not literally, of course, but you hope for the best. Diving it down in that corner, you have no clue what's going to happen. And luckily for the both of them and the car behind them, they all were able to slow it down, get those cars around the corner without coming around and spinning it out like a lot of drivers really have there, specifically this race. So it's been a tough corner for a lot of these drivers now, but Jamie Rushworth, he's still up in 2nd. He's not gained any time on the leader, so it's like you said earlier, the drivers that were going somewhere, they were traveling, they have found their destinations, and as long as nothing goes south, that's where they're going to stay.
Yeah, the cream has risen to the top, per se, and I said, again, if you're going to lose or gain spots, it's going to be on a mistake. You saw a mistake there for Cam Stark, cost him a lot of positions, has given everybody else behind him 1 or 2 in that exchange, as they've been able to, again, kind of gain some spots. Now only 5 cars left on the lead lap. Talked about last time we updated on that, it was Gary Borkenhagen. He has since lost his lap. Again, obviously the 24 did via spinning, but Eric Davis, now the last car on the lead lap, who started in 6th, sits 5th right now, 1 minute and 5 seconds back. So with race leader running about 1 minute and 42-second lap times, no immediate risk for the Davis camp as far as losing their lead lap status in these final 8 or so laps, unless again the 65 machine does have some sort of an issue. But right now for 3rd position, again, still the closest battle on track, only 0.6 of a second. That's for a podium spot, and there is a payout differential. Obviously, every race does have a payout in this. That battle for P3 is the difference of $5 between $15 for 3rd and $10 for 4th. Winner walking away with $30, $20 to 2nd, $5 for 5th as well. So essentially $5 increments, an additional 5 points over the regular increment. It's a $10 difference between 1st and 2nd, but top 5 getting paid out. So it's almost a survive and go to the bank tonight, because we've seen a lot of drivers have to come through a lot of adversity, and it seems like if you've had a clean race, you've been pretty well off.
That's really the key at road course races altogether. You got to keep your cars on the track, you have to keep everything going solid, and you have to stay out of trouble. You cannot go off into the dirt, you can't find the wall. You simply just have to run a momentum that keeps you on pace with everyone else, because at these road course races, you mentioned it earlier there, Evan, you're not necessarily racing the other drivers, you're racing yourself and the track.
Yeah, and we talked about the draft in these cars and how it can be a factor on the straightaways when you're really close. And obviously it was, a little bit more of a factor in the latter stages. It could become a factor here between DeJong and Werner for the battle for third. Maybe like 1 week ago at the Homestead Miami Speedway, the draft was a huge, factor on how tight is the car going to get on exit. We've seen a couple people really use the draft. They planted it in the fence coming out of 4. Your race is essentially, you got to work a strategy around the other cars. When you go to a road course, although, yeah, there's other guys out there, and it's very easy that you can come down and we can see some great racing. We just saw 3 wide in the final quarter of the race. It is still exciting battling the other cars. You got a lot of position swapping going on, but your strategy really is not all that dictated too much. It can be, obviously, in certain situations, but you're attacking, again, the corner. It's more you and the track, and the other cars, they're just kind of in the way trying to get through. So it is 2 very different styles of racing, which is why, and obviously Alex Simpson showed tonight. Strong and Interlagos had a solid run. Not the best driver that we've seen so far on the oval, but if he's this dominant every race, Steve, and he's able to be top 5s at ovals, forget about it.
We're hopped on board now with the number 25 of Andreas Werner sitting in 4th place, trying to chase down Michael DeJong there to take away that 3rd spot yet again, but it looks like he's not quite as fast through the more technical portions of this course as we ride on board with the gyro cam here. These Indy cars, it's a very bumpy track in the slow areas, and I do know for a fact Iowa, as we go there in 2 weeks' time, it's one of the oval tracks we visit on the circuit here. That's another one of those courses that's very bumpy, so if we hop on board the gyro cam at that racetrack, you will see it bouncing around a lot more than it does here, but we're watching him chasing that number 5, and he's just barely hanging on. I really think, Evan, that the draft is coming into play to keep him right in tow here.
Yeah, you got to work that, and you got to get right up to the back and try to step at a line at the right time to get the inside position. Werner did that. He stepped out of line. He made the move. It just happened to be that he stepped out to the right-hand side going into a left-hander. So he was on the outside going into the corner. Upper hand went to Michael DeJong, and the number 5 machine was able to hang on to what's going to be P3 at the time. Still sitting here right now about 5 car lengths back for that spot. Not giving up. Still 5 laps to go. Going to be this next time by the start-finish line. A little bit of a bobble into the corner as Andreas Werner tried to figure something out there. Going to give some space to that number 5 car. But again, it's all about setting it up at the right time, being able to complete that pass.
Passing a slow car there, that could have been very interesting, but the number 25 is still trying to chase him down, and Evan, he's just seeming to lose a little bit of time every lap. As our leader Alex Simpson in the number 14 machine, he crossed the line there to make it 5 laps remaining for this field. The majority of the field 1 lap down or more. Only 10 cars even on to 1 lap down less or. And then you've got Randy Krosno in the 11th spot. He's 2 laps down, and then everyone behind him also more laps down than that. So Alex Simpson's been the class in the field like we predicted this race, and he's really just showing these guys what it's like to go around this road course.
Yeah, if Alex Simpson continues the dominance, and again, we talked about the individual race payouts, which is really good to see for a startup league in an inaugural season. Quite a large entry fee, I guess we can say, compared to some leagues, and it's great that they've been able to get this amount of drivers, get the entry fees paid, because it gives them the opportunity to race for money every week, as well as obviously prizes for individual races, the Triple Crown races, which are our full-length tracks like Indianapolis, going to be included in those mixes, as well as overall points championships at the end, prizes in that regard as well. Alex Simpson making quite the bank here if he's able to go back to victory lane here. That would be $60 alone from the road courses, 3 races in, and again, 2 races in the 2014 side of things. We got 17 in 2015 to decide our championship. We still got a lot of racing coming up. Again, we've talked about it. Sebring, 1 week time. Iowa, the week following that. Still 7 road courses and 8 ovals left to go, plus about, 3 weeks in a row at Indianapolis, and that portion of things coming up in March, so that's going to be exciting as well.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of big races up on the board in the upcoming weeks here. And this race is just now coming to the very end of it. 4 laps remaining now for Alex Simpson. He has an absolute time zone and a half behind him to the next drivers on the same lap. So right now, Alex Simpson, of course, in the hot seat.
And just so smooth. Again, we talked about it, I said, with 5 guys on the lead lap, but Eric Davis, who's been quiet, could be walking away with a little bit of money in the pocket when it's all said and done. He was really a sleeper. Qualified 6th, only 14th fastest in practice. Top 5 car. Haven't really talked about him a lot in this race. He hasn't been in the big battles, but he's been quiet, which is sometimes a good thing at these road courses. Just be smooth. Besides the one trouble that we saw for Alex Simpson, he has been so consistent. It's just limiting errors, which is really going to help you. And it'll, maybe if you lose that 10th per lap, but you save an error, you're in the positive as far as that differential at the end of the race. Keeping it clean, surviving, and again, running your own pace, which I talked about. Again, don't force yourself to get over aggressive if you're in a battle, like we see Michael DeJong and Andreas Warner still going at it. However, it looks like that 5 car starting to get the advantage now as we close into the final 3 laps in this one. Looks like the 5 may be able to hang on. He has opened up that gap just a little bit. If he's able to keep it on track, I think he may be good, but again, can't make a mistake.
Jamie Rushworth, we've talked about him all race long. He moved his way all the way up to the 2nd spot after starting 19th. Very impressive run for him. He will not get up to the lead. There's basically no way about it unless something incredible happens to the leader. But he's done a very masterful job working his way up through the field, and I'm definitely sure he's going to be very happy with that 2nd place finish.
38 seconds back is the gap between P1 and P2, and again, I said it's going to be a week of what-ifs before we get to Sebring next weekend for that 3 of Jamie Rushworth. And again, we had the top 18 cars put down a time in the qualifying session, which was before this 45 minutes of open qualifying. They had a couple of open